Hey guys, this is John, and I'm playing Critter in the 5-minute pool on ICC. Okay, what to do today? Let's go knight f6 against Critter from Brazil, and we'll play for c5, why not? Usually they play d5, and now we'll play g6. Okay, we're going to have a Benko Gambit via transposition. I'm going to play a5 and try to develop the bishop to a6. This is kind of a nifty little way of playing this line. So white declined it by pushing the pawn past, and now they're going to go for a fianchetto, it looks like, and I can easily regain this pawn if I want. I'm not going to take it right away because it might be easier to clarify which piece should take it in a couple more moves, like let's say after I castle, for instance. So let's just castle here. Probably they're going for e4. Just queen c2 right now. I think I'm going to take with... Well, that's a close call, actually. So if I take with the knight, e4, knight fd7, probably bishop f4 will be played, but then I can go knight c4. This is not a bad option. Yeah, so let's... Yeah, let's take this way, because I also attacked d5 in playing this. So let's do that. And then we're going to go here. So my knights are fitting together rather nicely, I think. b3 could be played if white wants to fianchetto their bishop, but they do open themselves up for c4 if they play that way. So yeah, now let's bring this knight in. This is reminiscent of a mainline Benko, an accepted Benko, except that I have my a-pawn remaining, which should be helpful to me. Okay, so maybe he wants to eliminate this knight. This knight is undefended, so if I played knight here, they would have to take it. But do I want those simplifications? I'm not sure. So knight here, knight takes, knight takes. Let's say bishop takes immediately, bishop takes, takes. It's tough to say, actually. If I play something like queen b6, I'm a little concerned that knight a4 could be a problem. I think the most normal move is definitely playing knight e5. Rook b8 also comes to mind. Okay, I'm going to do this. Maybe I should use the other knight. Yeah, let's use the other knight first. If I had played knight ce5, I was slightly worried about knight d2, trying to avoid an exchange. So that's why I'm using this knight. And I predict white will take it, either bishop takes or knight takes e5. Knight d2, but that looks to be a blunder, right? So I can just take, and now f3 is a big problem square. Yeah, because now I get knight f3 check-in, winning the exchange. Let's just bank that. Let's trade the bishops. Okay, so white might try to play a4 and then establish a knight on b5. I don't think I have to be too concerned about that right now. So let's just play queen d7. Maybe trying to go a4 ourselves. And they're going to bring the knight back. That seems wrong. Here I can play f5 if I want, or even a4. But f5 would be a nice way to break up the pawn structure. I think they're trying to get the knight to c4 is their long-term goal here. But yeah, it looks incorrect to play this way. You know what? Let's go for f5. I think I'm totally justified in playing this move when white has just brought their knight back to the first rank. Okay, so queen takes or rook takes. Let's do queen takes. I think they're obliged to trade queens now. Otherwise, d5 is too weak. b2 is also weak in the endgame. Here I could take with the pawn or the rook. Let's take with the rook. Although after knight e3, the knight is getting to c4, isn't it? Let's take with the pawn, actually. Changed my mind. Okay, so attacking this guy. Rook a7 could be played. Also king f7, but if king f7, there is knight up, and they would be attacking this pawn. That's okay, though, because I'm going to win the b2 pawn. I think I'm happy to trade the f5 pawn for the b2 pawn. All right, so they're playing it kind of slow. Let's bring this over. Attack b2 once again. Let's just push. If knight e3, I take b2. Here I could push again, and then if takes, bring my rook into b1, but they have rook c2 to defend. So I'm not too sure that's helping me much. That's actually kind of nice. Let's do that. And then I'm going to play rook a4. So activating the rook up the file. And then that rook might make an appearance on c4 or d4, is my thinking. Yeah, so let's go here. If knight e3, I think just king g6, defending the pawn. This reminds me of what I did against Duca the other day, actually, wherein I sacrificed a pawn in a position where I was up in exchange. Maybe I should have learned from that game, because it was probably unnecessary to do that, but it seemed like a decent way to clear lines. I mean, here I think I'm still much, much, much better. Okay, so he really wants knight c4. I think that's apparent. It's an annoying plan, I gotta say. All right, let's bring the bishop up. Now, I think I want to play for e6. So let's do this. And we're going to get this pawn advance in. I would like to just straight out win that pawn, but I think it's more important to just get rid of it so I can destabilize this knight eventually. Let's pre-move this capture. If knight takes d6, I take on d5, and I've got two connected pawns. So this has got to be the way to go. Knight coming to b3 now, maybe. Okay, let's drop this back then. 35 seconds, though. Let's hurry. Push. If check, I'll just play king f7. Okay, bring the pawn up. Maybe bishop e7 and go attack a3 that way. Let's take that. Bring this back. He has knight c6. But I don't think it does much. He's playing off my time now, for sure. No question about that. A2 pawn is a goner. White cannot defend that. Can I convert with less than 30 seconds? I know I'm capable. Depends what white does. There's a certain skill to throwing obstacles in the way here. Okay, so let's check and then infiltrate. Bring this over. Let's go here. Checking would have been stronger, but this is okay too. Let's look to trade. Let's not do that. Let's not take yet. We're just going to go and take that pawn. I think this is the easiest way to do it. Okay, let's check here. Let's bring this up. I'm letting him take. I don't know for what reason. Let's do this. Let's get ready to push this pawn. Okay, checkmate. All right. So we get the checkmate in at the end. Kind of close one. But this was winning for us after we won the exchange, or it should be technically winning. I think my conversion was all right. The only question mark in my mind is whether pushing the a-pawn was really necessary. I was worried about this long-term plan of white establishing a knight on c4, so my hope with a3 was that I could activate my rook up the file and deny white the use of the c4 square. But it does give a pawn, so I'm not completely sure about it. Note that if white plays b3 here, I have rook takes b3, a takes b3, and then a2, and white would have to give the rook in order to stop the pawn from queening. So let's go back and have a look at this one. So it started with 2 knight f3, but the course of the game allowed a transposition into a Benko Gambit. And then a6. And I played this interesting plan with a5, where black persists in trying to develop the bishop to its natural square on the Benko, which is a6. So here, bishop a6. And notice how I was not taking this pawn, and that was for flexibility purposes. I wanted to leave it and decide later whether it was better to take with the knight or the queen, or maybe in some cases even taking with the rook. So let's see what the engine likes right about here, because here's where I took with the knight, but I mean, there is something to be said for taking with the queen as well. Yeah, it rates them about the same. Slight preference for queen takes. And then if e4, probably knight g4. Yeah, this is a common way for black to try to maneuver for the e5 square. So I'm trying to sink a knight in here. I guess in playing this way, I keep this diagonal open. As played, my knight went to c4, which was a more active square, but it did block that diagonal for my light square bishop. So that could be a reason why the engine somewhat prefers this way of doing it. So knight takes b6, e4, and here I played knight f to d7, bishop f4, knight into c4, and bishop f1. Spent a little while here. Yeah, I spent a minute on this move. I got to work on that, spending like an entire minute on a single move in a blitz game. That's usually not so good. Yeah, I mean, I played the natural move, I would say. And I did not play knight ce5 because it crossed my mind that maybe they would go knight d2 and try to prove that this knight is kind of stuck on e5 and that this knight might be superfluous. But c4 appears to be a strong reply, looking to use the d3 square maybe. Yeah, this looks good for black. So maybe both knight moves to e5 are viable and I should just choose one. So I did this, and I was really expecting white to do something along the lines of this, and then trade on a6, and maybe play a4 at the end and try to go knight b5. And I see also the computer likes that line of playing, because even though I have a really strong dark square bishop on this diagonal, the knight coming to b5 is going to kill a lot of my play because it blocks the b file. So say I do something like this, I don't have any future on the queen side now. I think I have to seek play elsewhere. And I think white's better. So it was crossing my mind. This is part of the reason why I spent so long deciding whether to play knight e5 at all, because I saw that picture of that simplified bishop versus knight position in my head, and I know from experience if white can play a4 and knight b5 there, it works out really well for them. So that might mean that if a4 is played here, because note that if white plays knight b5, I get to play a4 myself and stop them from supporting that knight. So I think that means if a4 is played, I might want to take on c3. As much as I would love to keep that strong dark square bishop. But then we run into issues on the b file. Maybe white can use the b file more effectively than I can. Yeah, because if I play like rook b6, technically I occupy the file first, but I might have to give it back because I can't teleport my other rook over here. If I play a move like that, then take, rook b1, white's better. And also they have a great square to use on b5 to try to go after the a5 pawn. I'm significantly worse now. So, I mean, it kind of makes me think that knight e5 was a mistake. Maybe I shouldn't do this. It's not really reflected in the engine eval, but that line is pretty forcing, is it not? Here, take. Yep, bishop takes, rook takes, a4 at the end. Maybe black has some way they can play the middle game, but it just appears to me that it's easier to be white in this position. Maybe if I destabilize d5, I can hold out, but I think in a blitz game, I'd prefer white. But white played knight d2, which is very bad because now they lose an exchange. I take and get knight f3 check in, fork on the king and the rook. So all this happens, and let's just see what my technique was rating according to the computer. So I went for f5. I was talking about how this might be unnecessary, but it seemed good. I wasn't expecting knight d1. What was I expecting white to do? I think I was still thinking they might go a4 and try for knight b5. Because, yeah, if a4, I think I was going to play this, and then if knight b5, maybe just sack the exchange back. This was one of my plans. And just be content with my extra pawn here. This is also a lot better for black, according to the engine. So knight d1, I played for f5. We got this trade. Here's kind of a close call between rook takes and pawn takes. At first I was going to do rook takes, and then I changed to pawn takes. Maybe rook takes is better because it doesn't leave this annoying weakness on f5 after all is said and done. But I didn't want knight e3 to come with tempo. It seemed to me like white could transfer the knight over, but rook e5, that's creative. So knight c4 can be met by rook takes d5. Yeah, that might be possible. At any rate, I took with the pawn, and then rook e1, just defended with my king. f4, I brought this over to attack b2. a4. Okay, now let's see what the engine thinks about this next move, a3. Says not bad. Actually, it's his top move right now. All right. I like it when the engine approves of my sacrifices. Take rook a4. Because, as I was saying, if white gets a chance to go here and here, I might have trouble progressing. Rook e2 is an annoying move, because not only does it help defend b2, but they can go rook c2, and that will support the c4 square. So, at least with this, I get to, at all times, dispute the c4 square. And as I was saying, if b3, we can take, and then go a2, and we're going to queen. So, as played, rook in, knight here. I just defended the f-pawn. And white still got the knight to c4, but so long as I manage to push d5 eventually, I am bound to win this position, I think. The extra pawn white has on the a file here doesn't really matter. So king f6, I'm just preparing e6 when the pawn is defended. Yeah, this looks to be the winning idea. If I don't have that, maybe white can somehow maintain this fortress. But e6 will eventually come, and I'll free up the d-pawn to advance to d5. Yeah, no, I didn't see anything white could do to oppose this plan, nor does the engine see anything either. The rest was just a time scramble. As usual, I'm certain that we both did not play the best moves, but I got the job done in the end. 1a2 and eventually converted. Here I probably should have just taken on e5, but I thought they would play king d4 if I did that, so I was trying to keep my pawns. Yeah, here this move was unnecessary. Probably just go take the h3 pawn instead, but even this is winning for black. Win the pawn ending. Okay, so in some ways this was a thematic Benko game. You saw some common Benko ideas on display here, like avoiding the capture on b6 straight away, waiting to see which way we want to take. That gave us the flexibility to decide between knight takes b6 and queen takes b6 later. Also, the importance of the e5 square. Black really wants to occupy that square in many versions of mainline Benkos, because if black stalls for a moment, white might get in e5, and that would be a nice pawn break for them to achieve when they have multiple pieces backing it up. And it also blocks out my bishop and potentially disrupts my structure. I think a key moment was when I played knight de5. White should have swapped twice and then traded bishops and played for a4 and tried to stick a knight in on b5. The computer thinks it's about equal, but I think white has more practical chances than black. Instead, they played knight d2 and dropped the exchange, and I was able to eventually win. All right, hope you guys enjoyed this game, and I'll be back again soon with another video. Talk to you guys later. Bye.